My name is Daniel, and I'm 24 years old. The day everything changed started like any other Thursday afternoon. I had just finished my shift at the community center where I worked as a youth counselor and called an Uber to take me to my grandparents' house for our weekly dinner together. When the car pulled up to their modest brick home on Maple Street, I could see Grandpa Robert sitting on the porch swing like he always did around this time. He was 72, with silver hair that caught the late afternoon sun, and those kind eyes that had watched over me my entire life. He was wearing his favorite plaid shirt, and his reading glasses hung from a chain around his neck. As I paid the driver and stepped out onto the sidewalk, Grandpa's face went from relaxed to puzzled. He stood up slowly, his hand gripping the porch railing, and called out to me, "Danny, why are you arriving in an Uber? Where's that SUV we bought you for your 24th birthday?" I froze right there on the walkway. My mouth opened but no words came out. Behind Grandpa, the screen door creaked open and Grandma Helen appeared. She was 69, with her hair styled in soft curls and wearing the blue cardigan I'd given her last Christmas. Her smile faded when she saw my face. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" she asked, stepping onto the porch beside Grandpa. Everyone froze. The whole neighborhood seemed to go quiet. Mrs. Patterson stopped watering her roses next door. The kids playing basketball down the street paused their game. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Then Grandpa did something none of us expected. His stern expression melted away, and he walked down the porch steps with his arms open wide. But before I could say anything, before I could explain, I needed to tell them what really happened. I needed them to understand the choice I had made. 3 weeks earlier, I had been driving that beautiful SUV they'd given me. It was a gorgeous vehicle, silver with leather seats and all the latest technology. My grandparents had saved for years to give me something special. They wanted me to have reliable transportation, something safe and comfortable. They'd presented it to me on my birthday with tears in their eyes, telling me how proud they were of the man I'd become. I loved that SUV. Every time I drove it, I thought of them and their sacrifice. They weren't wealthy people. Grandpa had worked as a postal carrier for 40 years, and Grandma had been a school secretary. They lived simply, saved carefully, and gave generously. But one evening, I was driving home from work when I saw something that changed everything. There was a family standing by a broken-down van on the side of Highway 47. A mother and father, probably in their 30s, and 3 small children. The youngest couldn't have been more than 4 years old. I pulled over to see if I could help. The father, his name was Marcus, explained that their van had died completely. They'd been living in it for 2 months after Marcus lost his job, and they couldn't afford their apartment anymore. They had been trying to get to his brother's place 3 states away, where he'd been promised work and a place to stay. The children looked tired and hungry. The little girl was holding a worn stuffed rabbit, and her eyes were so sad. The mother, Jessica, was trying to stay strong, but I could see she was exhausted and scared. I called a tow truck for them and bought them dinner at a nearby diner. While we ate, we talked. Marcus had been a machinist before his factory closed. Jessica had worked at a daycare but had to quit to take care of the children when they lost their home. They weren't asking for handouts. They weren't making excuses. They were just a family, trying to survive and get to a place where they could start over. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those children. I kept seeing that little girl's face, and I kept thinking about my SUV sitting in my driveway when they had nothing. The next morning, I made a decision. I drove to their motel where I'd paid for them to stay the night. I handed Marcus the keys to my SUV. "Take it," I said. "Get your family to your brother's place. Start your new life." Marcus stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Jessica started crying. They refused at first, saying they couldn't possibly accept something so valuable, but I insisted. I told them I had other options for getting around. I told them their need was greater than mine. "But this is too much," Marcus kept saying. "We can't repay you for this." "I don't want you to repay me," I said. "I want you to get your family somewhere safe. I want those kids to have a chance at a normal life again. And someday, when you're back on your feet, help someone else who needs it." They left that morning with tears and hugs and promises to stay in touch. I gave them my phone number and made them promise to let me know when they arrived safely. And for 3 weeks, I'd been taking Ubers and buses. I'd been telling my friends and coworkers that my SUV was in the shop. I couldn't bring myself to tell my grandparents what I'd done. I was terrified they'd be hurt or angry that I'd given away their gift. Now, standing on their walkway with both of them staring at me, I knew I couldn't hide it anymore. "Can we go inside?" I asked quietly. "I need to tell you something." We sat in their living room, the same room where I'd spent countless hours as a child. The same floral couch, the same family photos on the mantle, the same smell of Grandma's vanilla candles. I sat in the armchair while they sat together on the couch, holding hands. They always did. I told them everything. I didn't leave anything out. I explained about the family, about the children, about the impossible choice they were facing. I told them about handing over the keys and watching them drive away with tears streaming down all our faces. When I finished, the room was silent. Grandpa's face was unreadable. Grandma had her hand over her mouth. I felt my heart pounding in my chest, waiting for them to speak. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice cracking. "I know you worked so hard to give me that SUV. I know it meant everything to you, but I couldn't watch that family suffer when I had the power to help them. I couldn't drive around in luxury knowing those children were living in a broken van. I understand if you're angry with me. I understand if you're disappointed." Grandpa stood up slowly. He walked over to the window and looked out at the street for what felt like an eternity. I could see his shoulders rising and falling with deep breaths. Grandma sat perfectly still, tears running down her cheeks. Then Grandpa turned around, and I saw that he was crying too. But he was also smiling. "Disappointed?" he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Danny, I am the exact opposite of disappointed." He walked over to me and pulled me up into a fierce hug. Grandma joined us, and we stood there in the middle of their living room, all three of us crying and holding each other. "Do you know why we gave you that SUV?" Grandpa asked when we finally sat back down. "It wasn't just because we wanted you to have nice things. It was because we wanted you to be the kind of man who could use his blessings to bless others. We raised you to be compassionate," Grandma added, wiping her eyes. "We raised you to see people who are hurting and to help when you can. You did exactly what we would have hoped you'd do." "But the SUV," I protested. "All those years of saving was worth every penny if it taught you that things are just things," Grandpa said firmly. "But people? People matter. Families matter. Children matter. You saw people in desperate need and you put their welfare above your own comfort. That's not something to apologize for, Danny. That's something to be proud of." Grandma got up and went to the kitchen, returning with a box of tissues for all of us. We spent the next hour talking about Marcus and Jessica and their children. I showed them photos I'd received after the family arrived safely at Marcus's brother's place. The kids were smiling in front of a house with a yard. Marcus had already started his new job. Jessica had enrolled the children in school. "They send me updates every week," I told my grandparents. "Marcus is working hard and saving money. He says as soon as he can, he wants to buy me a car to replace the one I gave them. But I told him to focus on his family first." "That's right," Grandpa nodded approvingly. "They need to get stable before they worry about anything else." Over dinner that night, Grandma made my favorite pot roast and Grandpa told stories from his postal route days. He talked about all the people he'd met over the years, the families he'd watched grow up, the neighbors he'd helped in small ways. "You know, Danny," he said, passing the mashed potatoes, "when I was about your age, something similar happened to me. There was a family on my route, the Hendersons, and they were struggling terribly. Mr. Henderson had been injured at work and couldn't provide for his 4 kids. Your grandmother and I didn't have much back then, but we had more than they did." "What did you do?" I asked. "We gave them 3 months of our savings," Grandma said softly. "It was money we'd been putting aside for a down payment on our first house, but those children needed food and clothes and medicine for their father. We pushed back our house plans by 2 years, but we'd do it again in a heartbeat. We never told anyone about it," Grandpa continued. "Not because we were ashamed, but because it wasn't about recognition. It was about doing what was right. Just like what you did was right, Danny." After dinner, we sat on the porch as the sun set. The evening air was cool and comfortable. Grandpa rocked slowly in his chair while Grandma and I shared the swing. "I have something to tell you both," I said. "Marcus called me yesterday. He got a promotion at work. He's doing really well and he said he's arranged something. He wants to meet you both to thank you in person." Thank us? Grandma asked. But we didn't do anything. You raised me, I said simply. He says that anyone who could raise someone like me deserves his gratitude. He's driving down next month with his family. They want to meet the grandparents who taught me to care about others. Grandpa reached over and squeezed my hand. His grip was still strong despite his age. You know what the best part of getting old is? He asked. It's seeing your children and grandchildren become good people. It's knowing that the values you tried to teach actually took root. Your grandmother and I couldn't be prouder of you if you'd become a doctor or a lawyer or the president himself. You're a good man, Danny. That's worth more than any SUV. The weeks that followed were filled with anticipation. I continued taking Ubers and buses to work, but I didn't mind. Every ride was a reminder of the family I'd helped. Every bus trip was a chance to meet new people and hear their stories. My coworkers at the community center found out what I'd done when I had to explain why I needed rides to our off-site programs. Instead of thinking I was foolish, they were inspired. 3 of them volunteering at the local homeless shelter. Others organized a fundraiser for families in transition. You started something, Danny, my supervisor told me. You reminded us all why we got into this work in the first place. To help people. To make a difference. When the day finally came for Marcus and his family to visit, I was nervous. I'd arranged for them to come to my grandparents' house. I wanted them to meet in the place where I'd learned so much about kindness and generosity. I was at my grandparents' house early, helping Grandma prepare lunch. She'd made enough food to feed an army, insisting that growing children needed good home cooking. Grandpa was on the porch watching for their arrival. At exactly noon, my SUV pulled up in front of the house. It was gleaming clean, obviously well-maintained. Marcus got out first, then Jessica. Then the 3 children tumbled out excitedly. The reunion was emotional. I hugged each of them, amazed at how much the children had grown in just a few months. They looked healthy and happy, their eyes bright with life instead of clouded with worry. Marcus shook my hand firmly, then pulled me into a hug. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for giving us our lives back. Then I introduced them to my grandparents. Marcus shook Grandpa's hand with reverence. Sir, I want you to know that your grandson saved my family, he said, his voice thick with emotion. We were at the end of our rope. We had nowhere to go and no way to get there. And he gave us everything we needed without asking for anything in return. Grandpa smiled and put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. He did what we raised him to do, Grandpa said. He saw people who needed help and he helped them. That's what being part of a community means. That's what being human means. The little girl, Emma, walked up to Grandma and held out a drawing. I made this for you, she said shyly. Daniel told us you like flow. Grandma took the drawing, a colorful picture of a garden, and her eyes filled with tears. It's beautiful, sweetheart, she said, kneeling down to Emma's level. This is the most special gift anyone has ever given me. We spent the afternoon together on the porch and in the backyard. The children played while the adults talked. Marcus and Jessica shared their story in more detail, explaining the series of unfortunate events that had led to their homelessness. It wasn't laziness or poor choices. It was bad luck, timing, and a system that didn't have enough safety nets for families in crisis. We were both working full-time, Jessica explained. We had an apartment and we were making it work. Then Marcus's factory closed with only 2 weeks' notice. He looked for work everywhere, but nothing paid enough to cover our rent. We fell behind and got evicted. My daycare job didn't pay enough to afford a place on my own. We tried shelters, Marcus added, but they were full or couldn't accommodate our whole family together. The van was our only option. We were trying to maintain some normalcy for the kids while figuring out our next move. Grandpa listened intently, nodding along. The system fails too many good people, he said. I've seen it my whole life. Hardworking folks who just need a hand up, not a handout. But they get treated like they did something wrong. Marcus pulled an envelope from his pocket and handed it to me. This is the title to the SUV, he said. I'm signing it back over to you. You gave us the gift when we needed it most. Now we're in a position to give it back. I looked at the envelope, then at Marcus, then at my grandparents. I can't take this, I said. You need reliable transportation for your family. We bought a used minivan last week, Jessica said with a smile. It's not fancy, but it's paid for and it runs well. We can fit all the key DS and their sports equipment. Marcus is making good money now and we're saving up. We can afford our own vehicle. Please take it, Marcus insisted. Let us give you back what you gave us. Not because we have to, but because we want to, because paying it forward is the right thing to do. I looked at my grandparents. Grandpa nodded encouragingly. Take it, Danny, he said. Let them have the dignity of giving, just like you had the dignity of receiving their gratitude. So I took the envelope and we all cried again, happy tears this time. Before they left that evening, Marcus pulled me aside. I want to tell you something, he said. When you gave us that SUV, it wasn't just transportation you gave us. It was hope. It was the belief that people still cared, that the world wasn't as cold and heartless as it had seemed. My kids saw that act of kindness, and it changed something in them. They're not afraid anymore. They believe in goodness again. I just did what felt right, I said. Exactly, Marcus replied. You did what felt right without overthinking it or worrying about yourself. That's rare, Danny. That's special. And I want you to know that we're going to live our lives in a way that honors that gift. We're going to help others the way you helped us. After they drove away, waving from the windows of their minivan, I sat with my grandparents on the porch as the stars came out. You know, Grandma said thoughtfully, when we bought you that SUV, we had no idea it would end up being the best money we ever spent. Not because of the vehicle itself, but because of what it revealed about your character. She's right, Grandpa agreed. Any fool can buy things and keep them, but it takes a special person to give away something valuable because someone else needs it more. You didn't just help that family, Danny. You reminded all of us what really matters in life. Hot about everything that had happened over the past few months. The initial shock of seeing that family in need, the decision to give away my prized possession, the fear of disappointing my grandparents, the joy of seeing Marcus and his family thriving. And now, sitting here with the two people who had shaped who I was, I realized something profound. The SUV was just a vehicle. But the lesson it taught me about generosity, compassion, and putting others first, that was priceless. And the look of pride in my grandparents' eyes right now, that was worth more than any material possession I could ever own. Thank you, I said to them. Thank you for teaching me that things are temporary, but kindness lasts forever. Thank you for showing me through your own lives what it means to care about others. Thank you for not being angry when I gave away your gift. Oh, Danny, Grandma said, reaching for my hand, we could never be angry about that. We're just grateful that our lessons took root in you. As I drove home that night in my returned SUV, I thought about the journey it had been on. It had started as a birthday gift from loving grandparents. It had become a lifeline for a desperate family. And now it was back with me, carrying not just my body from place to place, but also a deeper understanding of what it means to live a life of purpose and compassion. I still see Marcus and his family regularly. Emma sends Grandma drawings every month. Marcus got another promotion and they bought a house. Jessica went back to school to become a teacher. The kids are thriving in their new community. And my grandparents, they tell everyone about what happened. Not to embarrass me, but because they're proud. They tell their friends at church, their neighbors, even the checkout clerks at the grocery store. They've inspired others to look for opportunities to help people in need. Tim. I drive past the spot on Highway 47 where I first saw that family. Every time, I'm reminded that we all have opportunities every single day to make someone's life better. Sometimes it's something big like giving away a vehicle. Sometimes it's something small like a kind word or a helping hand. But it all matters. It all adds up to a life well lived. My grandparents taught me that. They taught me through their words and their actions over a lifetime of watching them put others first. They taught me that stuff is just stuff, but people are precious. They taught me that the best inheritance you can leave isn't money or possessions, but values and character. And now, whenever someone asks me about my SUV and its unusual story, I get to share not just the tale of a vehicle, but the story of a family saved, grandparents who raised me right, and the understanding that sometimes the best gifts are the ones you give away, because in the end, what we keep for ourselves eventually fades and breaks and loses its value. but what we give away with love and compassion that lives forever in the hearts of the people we've helped and the lives we've touched. That's the real gift my grandparents gave me. Not an SUV, but the wisdom to know what truly matters. And that's a gift I'll spend the rest of my life trying to pass on to others. Just as Marcus and Jessica are passing it on to their children, and just as those children will pass it on to the next generation. That's how kindness works. It multiplies, it spreads, it transforms not just individuals but entire communities. And it all starts with one person deciding that someone else's need is more important than their own comfort. I'm grateful every day for that moment on Highway 47. I'm grateful for my grandparents who made me the kind of person who would stop and help. And I'm grateful for Marcus, Jessica, and their beautiful Aldrin, who reminded me that we're all in this together, and that the best way to honor our blessings is to share them with others who need them more. If you found meaning in this story about kindness, compassion, and family values, please give it a like and share it with others who might need to hear this message today. Subscribe to hear more stories about real people making a difference in simple but profound ways. And leave a comment below sharing your own experiences of kindness, either given or received. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now.